On the long arm of the seventh pair of chromosomes is a missing codon. A codon being 3 base pairs. A base pair is 2 nucleotides on opposite ends of a strand of DNA held together by a hydrogen bond. This missing codon is called the delta F508. The delta stands for deleted. The F, phenylpheniline. I may not be able to say it, but those scientists sure can't spell it. Phenylpheniline starts with a PH, not an F, you pedantic twats. The delta F508 is the most common genetic disorder found in cystic fibrosis sufferers. It accounts for 66% of all cases. The other cases are counted by over 800 different genetic defects. In the perfect chromosome, like mine, the 508 or the CF gene is not missing. The CF gene is actually responsible for the production of a channel protein called the CFTR, the Cystic Fibrosis Transmembrane Conductance Regulator. We're done. Boom shakalaka. The CFTR is a channel protein embedded in the membrane of cells found in the air passages or ducts. The CFTR facilitates diffusion of chloride in and out of the cells. A balanced level of chloride is necessary to maintain a steady ratio or homeostasis of water levels in and outside of the cell.
If the chloride atoms become unbalanced, it can draw too much water into the cell.
Water is drawn away from the outside layer where the mucus is, making this mucus thick, which is what happens in cystic fibrosis. As we've mentioned before, these cells can be found in the airways and ducts like the ones found in your lungs, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. Normally what happens in the lungs is we breathe. But what would happen if this stopped all of a sudden? You would die. Me on the other hand, I can afford black market lungs. So illegal, but so delicious. Let's talk about what would happen if we kept breathing. Or you kept breathing. Air is brought into the lungs through the trachea, where oxygen and carbon dioxide is exchanged with the circulatory system. This is the act of respiration, or breathing, for those of us who go to public schools. During this process, the air we breathe contains particles. These particles can be lodged inside the air passages of our lungs and damage them. Therefore, our body has come up with a defense mechanism, more ingenious than any Japanese Nintendo. Mucus is excreted from the cells that line our air passages in our lungs. This mucus captures the particles. Then, cilia, small hair-like fibers that also line the passages of our lungs, push the mucus out of our lungs to be spit or swallowed. Yeah. With our CF sap, particles get trapped, but the mucus is too thick for the cilia to move. Therefore, the mucus stays inside the lungs and causes infection. This infection causes inflammation. This inflammation causes infection. Tomato, and this continues until the airways balloon outwards in cyst-like areas. These cystic balloons are called bronchiectasis. In response to this infection, the body produces more mucus, which just compounds the problem. This also leads to a host of other problems. Hemoptysis, which is caused by damage due to bronchiectasis, is actually bleeding in the lungs. Blood vessels that surround the lungs are damaged by the same infection that damaged the lungs, rupturing them, causing that blood to mix with the fluid in the lungs. Pneumonia is bacteria multiplying and invading lung tissue. Atelectasis is when areas of the lungs collapse due to a buildup of secretions. Pneumothorax, which 1 in 5 people with CF have, is the development of a hole in the chest, which air leaks out of from, resulting in the lungs collapsing. The lung is not prone to keeping all of its misgivings to itself. It is very generous. Hi. It likes to see other organs go down with it. The right ventricle from within the heart pumps blood into the pulmonary artery to oxygenate it. The lung's infection now has spread into the capillaries, condensing them. This puts so much pressure on the heart, the veins emptying into the heart actually start to leak. Sorry, Annie Sue, but there doesn't look like there's much hope for your kids. As food travels through the digestion tract, it must eventually reach the stomach, thereafter the small intestine, and all the other organs that assist with the small intestine and its digestion of food. These organs play the most important role in digestion, which is really unfortunate for people with cystic fibrosis. Ha ha! Who says God doesn't have a sense of humor? Once food enters the stomach, the gastric glands lining the walls of the stomach secrete gastric juices. Being highly acidic, working with the muscles of the stomach wall, mix food and these juices into a thick liquid called chyme. This fluid now enters the small intestine into a chamber called the duodenum. This is where the pancreas sends its enzymes and pancreatic juices to raise the pH level of chyme, making it more basic. And the liver sends its bile juices through ducts into the small intestine to complete the final stages of digestion. Now, if you just heard of my use of the word duct and still have no idea what's going to happen next, I would ask you find yourself a shotgun and give yourself a lead enema. For those of you left, the ducts that deliver the enzyme without the CFTR become blocked and cannot deliver the majority of the enzymes to the small intestine. This results in the cells being damaged and destroyed, then being replaced by scar tissue. This loss of pancreatic cells means a drop in enzyme production. This now means the small intestine does not receive any of the enzymes. Islet cells make the insulin hormone. They too are destroyed by the trapped enzymes. This concludes in what I like to call diabetes. The ducts of the liver and gallbladder are also congested, blocking off the delivery of bile juices reaching the small intestine. The loss of bile juices makes absorbing fat very difficult. With the lack of bile and pancreatic juices, the high pH level of chyme does not become neutralized. This can cause damage to the small intestine, resulting in an ulcer. In the big picture, where I live, this means you can't take nutrients from food. So it seems it's the ending credits for you, little Jimmy. Ha ha! Spanish! Ha ha! Well, Miss Senorita, or something, seeing how you're a visible minority, let me explain something to you. In the case of cystic fibrosis, it doesn't always pay off to be white. Cystic fibrosis appears at different rates in different races and ethnic populations. Cystic fibrosis is most commonly found in Caucasians. 1 in every 2,500 births is a cystic fibrosis case. In African Americans, it's 1 in every 17,000 births. In most Asian groups, it's 1 in every 90,000 births. Ha ha! Mail order brides!